Welcome back to the Blue Collar Boxing Podcast. I am Luke from Biloxi. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and give me a follow on @BlueCollarBoxing on X. Fight fans, I am sick and tired of the WBC. This is going to be a rant. If you don't like rants, change the channel. Before I get into it, I want to give a shout out to Matthew Aguilar, who wrote an excellent piece on fightsatw.com. That's Fights Around the World. I'll put a link to that article in the description. And here is Matt's Twitter handle. Give him a follow. Tremendous boxing knowledge. Been around the sport, covering it for 30 years for various outlets. Always a good read. He really writes an indictment of the WBC and some of their chicanery over more than the last 40 years or so. So I highly recommend you go and read that. This week, the WBC, for no reason at all, ranked Conor Benn number 1 at welterweight. And to me, that's shocking. Conor Benn hasn't campaigned at welterweight in some 4 years. He just fought 2 fights at middleweight against a very depleted Chris Eubank Jr. I'm not really sure that Conor Benn can even safely make welterweight anymore. Perhaps he can. The WBC came out very quickly to help clear Conor Benn in the whole clenbuterol egg fiasco. I think it was clenbuterol. I could be wrong about that. Don't sue me, Conor Benn. You pop positive for something and you blamed it on eggs. That much is true. And you were subsequently cleared and allowed to fight by the British Board of Boxing Control. Also true. So the real reason I think that they did that is because they want a money fight. And look, guys, the UK is the center of boxing in the world in a sense for money. Even when you're talking about Saudi money, it's always the British Board of Boxing Control that sanctioned those fights in Saudi Arabia. So they have sanctioned they're going to sanction Mario Barrios defending against Ryan Garcia, and they want the winner of that fight to fight Conor Benn. The WBC has machinations there, and the reason they do is because that's the biggest money fight that they could perhaps get their hands on at welterweight to secure the most sanctioning fees. Okay, there's a famous quote in politics, and I forget where I got it, but it holds true for boxing as well. It's always about the money, and when it's not about the money, it's about the money. And that's the tradition of the WBC. You know, technically they call themselves a nonprofit, but where are their profits? What are the tangible profits? Well, you know, these massive junket conventions that they throw, the most recent in Thailand. Everybody gets first-class flights. Everybody eats in 5-star restaurants. Everybody gets nice hotel suites and spas and tours, and, you know, everything's comped. At these, I did some time on the convention circuit, not the boxing convention circuit, but it's 10% of work is done and 90% is play. And there's virtually nothing that takes place at a WBC boxing convention that couldn't be done over a Zoom meeting. You know, the one thing they could perhaps do is present, you know, new title belts to fighters, and I get that, but you don't have to have a week-long convention at a 5-star hotel to do that. They could do all this on Zoom. It's 2025. If I can make a freaking YouTube video on my iPhone, the WBC can vote in a Zoom meeting. The other thing that is really starting to get to me, and look, all the sanctioning bodies do this, but lately the WBC has made an art of it, and that is the sanctioning of fights for interim world title belts. Most recently, the Oshaki Foster-Steve Fulton fight, which was scheduled to take place at 135 pounds. Steve Fulton blew weight, and then the WBC swooped in and goes, well, Shakur's fighting Teofimo at 140. Let's go ahead and sanction this for the WBC interim title, right? Fulton was rewarded for not making weight. Still got a title shot. And the reason that they do this, there's really 2 reasons. The main reason, though, is that the WBC can charge higher sanctioning fees for a, quote, WBC interim world title fight than they can for a eliminator. And that's why they do it. And the second reason, which is really an extension of the first, is they don't want vacancies in their world championships. They don't want people to fight for the vacant full title. They want to immediately elevate someone so that in their next fight, guess what? They can charge more sanctioning fees. And then the other thing that they did was they stripped Terrence Crawford, a 3-time WBC world champion. It might be more, but I'm pretty sure it's just 3 at 135. I'm sorry, at 140, 147, and 168. Apparently, they didn't agree before the fight to the cost of the sanctioning fee. And what the WBC could have done was pulled their belt from contention in the Canelo fight. But guess what? Why didn't they want to do that? Because Canelo was paying massive sanctioning fees to the WBC. So they thought, well, we'll work it out later. Then they came up with a fee and Terrence Crawford didn't want to pay it. And there you go. Now, I understand they do have to have operating costs. Okay, I'm not that naive. But these exorbitant fees to fund these junkets and lifestyles of their board is ridiculous. And the way that they exposed themselves on this is Mauricio comes out, Mauricio Suleiman, says, well, Terrence Crawford will never again fight someone ranked by the WBC. I'm taking my ball home and we can't play. What a bitch move. That shows to me that it's all about the money. You don't care about the sanctity of the sport. You don't care about making sure that the best fighters are the ones that are world champions. You care about the money. What an egregious foul on their part. And, you know, let me tell you something. And if you're authorized by the WBC to be, you know, a supervisor at ringside, because it's not always Mauricio. He only goes to the big shows. One of the reasons their sanctioning fees are so high is because of all the baggage fees, because they got to make damn sure that they have enough interim title belts pre and post weigh-in. And sometimes you may not be able to overnight one from Mexico City because you just never know. You may have to sanction a fight for the WBC interim world title with very little notice. So these guys are having to bring 4 and 5 belts with them on any given night. You know, you may be down the street here at Highway 90 in Biloxi at the Waffle House, right? 3 a.m. You just got done at the casino blowing all your sanctioning fees at the blackjack table, and you see a fight break out at the Waffle House. Well, you got to have a belt ready because you just never know. That fight could go viral, and you want to be in that room holding that belt and going, this is for the WBC Women's 126-pound championship. Interim, of course. And no, yeah, your sanctioning fee there is going to be very cheap. Maybe they'll just add some freaking chocolate chips on top of your waffle, but it's the next fight that matters, right? It's always the next fight that you can really grift those fees on. You know, same thing if you're at the casino. How many brawls do we see there? You've got to be ready. You know, hell, since COVID, there are fights breaking out on airplanes all the time. You're up in your first class, posh cabin, not business class, first class, because, you know, you're a WBC supervisor at ringside. You've got to carry on a belt. Right? Because you got to be ready. Because those guys back in coach may have a problem, start fighting too many drinks in the terminal, and then you've got to be able to grab that flight attendant's microphone and go, this is sanctioned for the WBC Interim Super Middleweight Championship, who will be the mandatory challenger to whoever we decide. But they're not going to fight Terrence Crawford, by God. You know, you got to be able to sanction a fight on the fly. I mean, no pun intended. And I get it. I'm going off on a rant here, but it's almost that ridiculous. It's almost that. I mean, I remember back, this is about 12 years ago, something like that, where the WBC just basically engineered a middleweight championship for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. You know, essentially as a favor to his father. They gave him an interim fight. I forget who it was. I want to say it was Rubio. You guys check me on that in the comments. So then he becomes... And I don't even think Rubio had fought at 160, maybe a couple of times, but he had been mostly a 154-pound fighter. So they give the interim belt. Then they go ahead and elevate him and make Sergio Martinez some kind of weird status just so Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. could say he was a world champion. And then, of course, he subsequently lost it to Sergio Martinez when they finally did fight. But they railroaded Martinez. They literally railroaded him. All because they wanted their boy, their legacy guy from Mexico, to have a world championship. When he was fighting Jake Paul and any of his other fights, when he was, you know, announced as a WBC champion or former champion, there always was an asterisk there in my mind. And they've done this before. It's a pattern of behavior over and over and over again. Like Matthew Aguilar said about the Roy Jones situation. And I forget the guy's name. I can't say it. Raccigiani. I know I'm butchering that, but I remember that Graciano, they railroaded him, and he sued him into oblivion. Go read Matt Aguilar's article. Lucky they didn't bankrupt. He accepted, a structured settlement instead of a lump sum. Otherwise, there would be no WBC. But they knew that Roy Jones, being a superstar, A-side fighter, brought more sanctioning fees when he was able to defend the championship. It was about money. Those $3,000 suits that Mauricio wears and those Ozempic shots he's on, let me tell you, they're not cheap, even in Mexico. Somebody's got to pay for that, and it's got to be Terrence Crawford, All right, guys, that's my rant. Seriously, give Matthew Aguilar a follow. He's outstanding. Love his stuff. And thank you guys for all the views. It means a lot. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. And I'll see you on the next one.